Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. It is day 3 of IMEX, and I am excited to bring to you this gentleman right here to my left. I can actually do that correctly because I'm not on dual cameras. I normally mess up my fingers. He's sitting next to me, so I'm very, very excited about it. David Allison, and actually tell everybody who you are because I just forgot exactly my script.
Well, first off, I'm a guy with a very shiny forehead. Look at the lighting in this thing. I'm just wearing one of those boots they record stuff. Now we look like we're going to make out. So my name is David Allison. I'm the founder of something called the Valuegraphics Project. And what we do is use a global data set we've built of the shared values of everybody on Earth. 152 different languages that we've used to build this thing, million surveys we've done. So we can look at any group of people and say, here's what they actually care about. Here's what's in their hearts. Here's their shared values. So we use that for my speaking work. We use it for consulting with big companies, and we use it for having fun in a podcast booth with my friends.
And the cameraman behind us, yes. Well, I mean, I think it's really something you posted the other day, and y'all look at the title down here, Why Values Matter in Food and Beverage. And we're going to talk about why that happens and why that's important. And actually this afternoon too, I'm going to talk to Trevor Liu about some of the same things too. But why are values so much more important than just, I mean, because you posted about demographics, like age and gender and all of those things. And why are the values more important?
Well, we all kind of know it just from common sense that demographics don't really tell us anything about people, right? I mean, if you put a room of 10,000 people together who are all women who earn, more than $80,000 a year in a white collar job, like how similar do you think they're going to be on the inside, right? They look like each other on the outside, but on the inside, they're going to be entirely different. So why do we sit in our boardrooms looking at demographic descriptions for people and then spending money based on what we think that means?
Right. Yeah.
All demographics do is tell us what people are. They don't tell us who people are.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
So we need a new way to think about that group of people. Demographics are still important. We got to put a fence around a group. There's only a certain reality around who's coming to an event, for example.
Right.
But then thinking that we know who they are based on their demographics, that's where we gotta find a different way, and that's where values come
in. And then yesterday I was talking to Sucheta on this and in how food and culture and the culture of somebody brings into who they are, right? It's where they're from, and they're bringing that to an event.
Yeah.
And they're bringing that to your client base. They're your clients, and they're bringing that to you. So how does the culture play into that value?
Oh, culture plays a huge role. I mean, we've, as I've mentioned, done a million surveys around the world where our database is accurate for 180 countries. So country by country, in fact, city by city, in fact, neighborhood by neighborhood, we can look and say people there share these things in common.
Right.
So let's say I've got a gig coming up where a very large international trade show has asked me to profile the people who are going to their trade show.
Okay.
And then I'm sitting down with their board of directors and their committee members and saying, let's pull this thing apart from start to finish based on what we know the people who are coming care about.
Okay.
And that includes food.
Right.
So what are the most important values for this group of people, and how should that impact our choices around food and beverage and programming and registration and communication and post-event follow-up and all of the different touch points that everybody knows about.
Right.
Culture will have a huge impact on that because we are the product of where we grew up.
Right.
So people who are coming from China are going to be different than people who are coming from South Africa, and they're going to be different than people who are coming from Manhattan.
Right. Yeah. And they're all blending together and sitting down at a table to share some food.
Yeah. So what the goal is you want to try and see where they overlap.
Okay.
And say, okay, these people have this set of values. These people have this set of values. But guess what? They overlap here and here. And so let's use those overlapping values as a way to understand what's going to work for everybody who comes to the room. Everybody who comes together. Yeah, it's really that simple. It's that complex. It's taken us 10 years to be able to do this, but now we can do it. It's easy to see what are sort of the North Stars you should be using to make these decisions.
Right. And when you're thinking about the logistics of an event and somebody's picking the food and beverage, and a lot of people are just picking line by line, like I want this one on Monday, and actually there's Monday lunches, here's Wednesday's lunches, day of the week to save sustainability wise, but they don't think about how that food might impact somebody.
Here's a great story. When we're training people to use values data to make decisions, I often will use catering as a sort of example for them to, like, maybe their real job is to be there and figure out long-term strategic direction for an organization.
Right.
We'll say, let's just talk about catering. So if you knew these values to be true and you're bringing all your customers together for some kind of an event, what would you tell the caterer? So like some examples. Let's say we find out that a group of people over-index off the charts on creativity. What do you have for breakfast that aligns with creativity? You're not going to have eggs, bacon, sausages.
And pastries.
And carbs, right? You're going to have something that helps people go, wow, this is creative. Or even I feel creative because of the way that this food has been served, or my participation in choosing and arranging. There's going to be something creative about it. But on the other hand, if you find out that the folks who are coming over-index on the value of, let's say, health and well-being, well, that's an easy one. We want to go down that road and make sure that nothing shows up that isn't about health and well-being. Double negative there, I realize, as it's coming out my mouth. But health and well-being is a cue. The values are a cue, and I'm using air quotes, which I hate, but here I am doing them. Health and well-being is an easy direction, but you know, there's a lot of talk in the industry right now about how all the food should be healthy. I don't think that's a bad idea, but for some audiences, being healthy is far more important than it is for others.
Right.
I'll give you one more example just to like kind of map this out. Let's say the group that's coming to a particular conference over-indexes on social standing.
Okay, like where they are on the IMEX Fun Run cater.
Where they are in the pecking order.
Okay.
So you have a private event for these folks. I mean, I'm going to be silly to make a point. This is where you pull out the caviar.
Right.
And the lobster, and the real, not just regular old champagne, but the stuff that's been aged in a cellar for 10 years, with a sommelier that comes out and tells them the story about how this has been aged in a cellar for 10 years.
Right.
You don't have to go to that expense and worry if they don't over-index on social standing.
Okay, gotcha.
So knowing what people care about in their hearts helps you figure out everything about an event.
Well, and that could be like the Cattlemen's Association, you know, or the Farming Association. You're not going to necessarily pull out that caviar because they're more down to earth, gritty, dirty. I mean, and you're not, and maybe you can design it around that as well. But
but you know what? It's so funny when you start looking at people with values, the stereotypes fall away.
True.
So I'll give you a quick story about that. A while ago, I was asked to come and profile and do a keynote speech about people who work in the blue collar trades. Okay. And the people in the audience own companies that employ folks in the blue collar trades, right? So carpenters, electricians, drywallers, etc.
Some of them are like on that high social standing and you don't know it.
Well, this is the point of the story, right? What they ended up over-indexing on, and the point of the keynote was how do we get more people to come into the industry?
Right.
So what they ended up over-indexing on was the value of service to others.
Okay. Yeah.
They want to know that they're in a helping profession. So here's the best part of the story. Guy comes up to me afterwards. I make this point on stage and he says, I want to tell you, I have 7 offices across the southern United States. And in each one, there's a fleet of vans. And in each fleet of vans, there's one pink van because the proceeds from that van every day go to fund breast cancer because my wife, et cetera, says, amazing, my friend, you found this thing. He said, no, that's not the story. The story is at every one of those offices every day, my guys, largely still guys, fight over who gets to be in the pink van. So you're thinking, okay, we're going to try and do food and beverage for drywallers and welders and electricians. You wouldn't be like, how can service to others help us with this? Maybe what we should be doing for food is going as a group to the local food bank and packing boxes and having sandwiches with the folks who work there.
Right.
Instead of trying to do it with fancy buffets or whatever you would be doing at the event.
Right. I love that story because it goes back to exactly what you said, the value of what people appreciate and what they believe in their lives and and you never, because you're walking down the street, you don't know that my dad's in the hospital right now. I mean, he is. He fell the day before I was coming here. He's like, you got to go. He's like, you got to go to the football game. I'm like, Dad, I'm not going to the football game, but I'm coming to IMEX. But you walking down the street, you wouldn't know that. No. Right. And me checking in on him while I'm walking here. Right. but those are the family values. And I think so you really do need to take that into consideration.
Well, and what's really odd and fun and exciting about this is that you look at two people who are demographically so unaligned.
Right.
So, I'm a member of the LGBTQ plus community, and I'm married, and I'm almost 60 years old, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you put me next to someone who's 22 and is a person of color and is working in an entirely different field. There's nothing, these two people have nothing in common.
Right.
We could be twin sisters on the inside.
Right. Yeah.
We could be identical to each other in terms of our values.
Brothers from other mothers.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think there's some sessions here this week about, death and people losing and how you deal with that and leading up to that. And those are the things that bring into the value. But I want to talk about food let's food and not
have a sip of my coffee since we're talking about food.
Yes, please. And we're going to talk about shitty coffee too this afternoon. But the food and beverage, I mean, so you're taking all those demographics for people. How do we find those demographics or those values of the people, not the demographics, the values of the people to design those?
Yeah.
Are we looking at their social media feeds? Are we using AI? How are we finding that out?
So we call it Valuegraphics.
Okay.
So it reminds people of demographics.
Okay.
Because in the same way that you can look at the demographics of a group of people, you can look at the value graphics of a group of people. So there's a few different ways you can do this. The first one is you can hire my company and we'll do an accurate profile for you. But without doing that, there's two other things you can do. The first one is you can buy a copy of my book. Now, it sounds like I'm trying to make money, but anybody who's ever put a book up on Amazon knows you make like $1 a book, right?
Right.
So 1,000 people would have to buy based on this podcast, and I'd have enough for a really nice dinner for you and I.
Sounds good.
But in there's a quiz. There's a 15-question quiz. You can send it out through your CRM system, push it out however you want, and it'll point you to one of 15 chapters in the book that tells you everything we know about people who've responded to that quiz in a certain way.
Oh, okay.
So that's a really fast and easy, and it's like a $16 way of doing it.
Right.
But here's something even better. We call it the 3 telltale questions. Okay. So if you just weave these questions into conversation with people or formalize it through a survey and listen to what people are saying, everyone's going to answer differently. So you got to kind of listen for the common themes. Those are values bubbling to the surface. So first one, why do you go to work? Wouldn't that be a cool question to ask people coming to an event? Why do you go to work? And you're going to hear friendship, creativity. I have to pay my bills and feed my family. My friends are there. Right. I feel like I'm making a difference in the world. Those are people telling you their values. Right. The next question, why would you give away half of your lottery winnings? And people will start by saying, oh, cancer, because you say, no, not where, but why? Why would you give away half of your lottery winnings? And the third one, which is my favorite, and I always, when I'm explaining this, say you should do this around the dinner table with your friends after they've had their second glass of wine. Because this one tells you a lot about people. You get to say one thing to yourself from 10 years ago. Okay. What's that one thing? And more importantly, I actually don't even really care what you want to say. What I want to know is why that thing? Okay. If you ask those 3 questions, weave them into conversation, do it formally in a survey format, people will tell you what's driving those massive decisions. The human brain only any decision based on value. If you know why people are doing all that big important stuff, you know what their values are. Yeah. Okay, completely jumped into my mind when you said this. Yeah. Okay, so I always joked when I was little that I wanted to be the crossing guard at the school. But when I think about what I'm doing now, I am doing that because I'm helping people stay safe and eat well at events so they don't die and people don't offend them with the food that they're serving. So I am kind of that crossing guard. So it's that value of service, basically. And I love just feeding people and talking to people. But so I would say you have some values that are, let me ask you a couple of questions. Do you, and this is again, very unscientific, right? But just some patterns I've noticed. Yep. Do you have a favorite restaurant? Here, Border Grill. No, in general, like if you're at home, it's like we got to go out and eat. Do you have like the place you go to? Yes. Okay. And when you're there, is there the chair that you hope you get? No. Okay. Is there a thing on the menu that you tend to order all the time? Yes. Okay. Do you collect anything? Do I collect anything? It could be an experience. It could be objects. It could be. You have some collections of stuff in your life. Okay. Cool. So just based on those 2 responses, I'm going to hazard a guess that one of your values is loyalty. Yes. Because loyalty to objects is a collection. Loyalty to a routine is loyalty. And that routine is I go to this restaurant, I sit in this chair, I order this thing. You will know people in your life who behave like this all the time, and they will also then be loyal to people, probably to brands, probably to other aspects of their life. Super unscientific way of getting in, because people are going to answer based on who they are and what our relationship is and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But there's an example. So loyalty is big for you. Given what you do for a living, I'm going to say creativity is big for you. And it's food, sure, but food is a creative outlet. Right. And designing food experiences for people, that's a creative outlet. And I'm also going to hazard a guess based on the industry you're in, because we've profiled people who work in the events industry. Right. Over-index typically on the value of personal responsibility. You like to be the one who gets stuff done. You probably have a checklist and you like ticking things off. It makes you feel good to take stuff off. And you want to be the one who's moving the needle and making stuff happen. So it's personal responsibility. So personal responsibility, loyalty, creativity. Now that I know those three things about you, I can probably design a pretty wicked menu for you, an amazing event. I can get you to buy something from my company. I can get you to come and be an employee at my organization, because I know how to frame everything up to land on those particular values. That's awesome. Yeah. Now, how do you do that for 17,000 people though? Well, we profiled them. Okay. I don't know if I'm allowed to name the organization, but a very, very large trade show like this one, they've asked us to profile people who come to their trade show. Okay. We get a sample of them, so about 2,000 people. We ask them about 5 questions. That's all we need. We listen to what they say, but more importantly, what they've told us allows us to go into our benchmark database of 1 million surveys, hundreds of millions of data points, and pull out all the lookalike data and go, oh, people like that? Here's what we know about them. We know all this stuff about them. Yeah. And then we're sitting down with their board and their committee and saying, let's start at marketing, and then ticket purchase, and then pre-event communication, and then what happens the day they show up, and what are the programs and things that happen. So strategy, David. Yeah. What? But people don't want to focus on strategy. Economy these days. Exactly. They just want everything to be easy and fun. Right. Yeah. And strategy takes time. It does. It does. But it's there we go. Okay. Internet. Everybody's coming on the show floor. So there's more and more people using the Wi-Fi. Yeah. Okay. So thinking about too, and I'm a big proponent of people with helping people with food allergies, people who have religious-based diets, or who have personal preferences on the way they eat, organic, vegan, vegetarian. How do you, and it's probably from both perspectives, the planner as well as the hotel, it's a pain point of trying to feed all of these people with, some people are like, well, we can't do that because we're not a peanut-free environment. I'm like, well, you can take the steps, you can be strategic about it, right? But how do we get around that pain point and make this an object of creating an experience that they will never forget? If you're asking me to solve hotel operational issues, you got the wrong guy. But what I will tell you from personal experience as a keynote speaker, I'm always in hotels. I'm always at those banquets. I'm always at those lunches and those coffee breaks. A key issue, I think, is making it easy for you to eat the way you want to eat. Okay. I'm going to give you a hypothetical. Okay. I'm away at a trade show or a conference or a convention, and my choices are stick around for the banquet with gravy-covered chicken, or skip the banquet and I can order room service where there's gravy-covered chicken. Right. Or I can end up just out of desperation because I'm tired and I'm exhausted and I'm jet-lagged, eat the contents of my minibar. Right. Which costs like $250 if you even eat the little almonds in the can that nobody's ever opened before. Right. And I've done this. I've sat down and over the course of 2 days, eaten my mini bar, and that's been my entire... And the Oreos, by the way. And the Oreos. And that's been the entire nutrient intake from my system. Because it's just too hard to do anything else. How can you make it easy? Could I, for example, just thinking out loud here, could I, when I register for an event, tell you what all my stuff is? And then could you maybe hire an outside company who's going to come in and say, we're going to stock that stuff in your mini bar for you? Oh my God, I'd love that. Wouldn't that be amazing? Yes, that would be amazing. There's all your favorite food in your mini bar.
And you don't have to pay $500 for it.
And how amazingly would you feel about that organization for having gone to that length for you?
Right.
It doesn't have to be about feeding you on the floor, on a plate, with a waiter and a tablecloth.
Right.
Stock my room. You can do that a week in advance. It doesn't have to be while you're in the middle of all the stuff that event planners have to think about, right? Mini bar stocking, I think, would be an amazing way to work with a hotel.
Yep.
Maybe an outside supplier, plan those menus, give people options. Here's like on the airline, here's the 10 different menus you can have. Which one do you want in your mini bar? And we'll be waiting for you. And here's the upcharge for it. I'd pay extra per night to know that my food was bought and in the fridge and waiting for me.
Well, yeah, because the other day I went to Whole Foods, and I normally walk to Whole Foods, but it's 102 degrees here. And so I took my Uber. So that was what, $20 to take it there, $20 to take it back. I bought my breakfast for the week, and it would have been nice. I mean, I guess I could have gotten it delivered to me.
Sure, but then you would have had to get it delivered to you.
Right.
And you would have had to be there to receive it.
Right.
And you would have had to go and meet the guy in the lobby. And instead, you could have been on 3 Zoom calls closing 3 deals.
Right.
Or manning your booth, or doing whatever it is you need to do at the event. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So just removing the obstacles, I think, and being creative around that. What are other ways you can get people the nutrition that they need at the event? The nutrition that they need and the nutrition that they want at the event, while making it as simple as possible.
And how do we operate? And this is maybe, we're not solving operational things, but thinking through. I was chatting with somebody the other day about the staff, and I've actually, this is a real legitimate experience. I was trying to order my gluten-free food at a lunch, all Spanish, which is typical in our industry, and I'm not bashing that. I'm glad that we're employing them, but you don't give them the tools to do their job. And so I'm pulling out my Google Translate and saying, hey, do you have gluten-free? And they're like, oh yes. But and I know other convention centers that everybody there is Burmese, and that's the only language that they have, and they can't communicate. So how do we help them, communicate in that way, showing the values of them as employees of that convention center or that hotel, and then the values of us as attendees and what we need to get? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Google. Google Translate is an amazing tool. Where was I recently? I was speaking at the Mexican version of IMEX.
Okay.
And it was in my Uber on my way from the airport to the hotel I was staying in, and the guy and I were having this amazing conversation, and I was just holding my phone up between the two of us, and it would translate him, and I'd go, oh wow, I had no idea, and then I would say stuff, and he'd read, just like going back and forth. Great conversation. There's like no barrier. And he was so excited because he was like, oh my God, I get to talk to the gringo. And I was super excited because, oh my God, I get to talk to the local.
Right. Yeah.
And he was giving me tips on where's the best place to go and get the food that is the sort of trademark of that town I was in.
That's the best.
Yeah. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the tools are there.
Right.
Whipping them out when you're at a banquet sometimes is a little bit difficult.
Right.
Maybe event planners could, I don't know, print a little card in advance that the servers have that they can just point to some phrases that are like, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, it's just, I think, and I guess my question too was about the values of looking at our employees and looking at our attendees, and how can we help them do their job the best by looking at their values and understanding them. And that includes their language.
Yeah. So that's a great question. We get hired all the time to come in and profile the folks who work inside an organization.
Right.
It'd be amazing to do it with a workforce inside a convention center or a hotel chain or something like that. And then that gives the people who are managing those teams the understanding of what do those folks really care about. How do we set up training programs for them that's going to resonate with them? How do we put them into particular kinds of work that are more aligned with their individual values? Some of them might like being forward facing and interacting with folks, and others might be introverts and just not want to have anything to do with any of it.
Right, exactly.
So understanding the values of your workforce allows you to make all kinds of decisions about retention and engagement and getting people excited and trained and all of those kinds of things. So, my little pin, it's my
values are the answer.
Values are the answer.
Values are the answer.
It doesn't matter what the question is, because humans make every decision based on their values. So values are the answer.
So financially wise, have you seen it in companies exceed or excel when they look at the values? How has that helped them on the bottom line?
Yeah, there's so many different ways. I mean, once you understand what your end user consumer, let's say, or your employees really care about, the metrics are going to go through the roof. And we see it all the time. We see, because you're reducing the guesswork and you're not sitting around going, what should we do? Well, those guys did this thing. Those guys did that thing. So, and I saw a thing when I was at a conference once. So let's try that. One of the best benefits is it takes the arguing out from inside the organization. You're not all trying to jostle for your idea to be the best idea. You need ideas that are based on what people actually care about.
Right.
So yeah, we see sales increases. We see diversity, equity, and inclusion starts to gel for people.
Okay.
Because instead of thinking about folks based on their individual, let's call them their, I don't know what to call them, their points of difference. So
right.
There's the Black Employees Association inside the organization, the Employees Association inside. There's the Indian, and then there's the this, and that, the other thing. What do they have in common?
Right.
You know, we need to celebrate our diversity. We need to, we have a lot of making up to do for some of these groups who have been historically marginalized and not well represented. Right. But nothing in history ever has been solved by doubling down on our differences.
100% agree. Wow. The
only way for us to work together to solve all those problems is if we can see each other in each other.
Right.
We got to find some common ground.
Yeah.
And you know what? We agree on this thing. So how come for you and your folks, it isn't being treated in the same way as it is for me and my folks? Right. Let's solve that so that we can both reap the benefits of this value that we both care about. Let's figure out how to solve that together. Right. Instead of it being an argument.
Yeah. Right? Susheta made a really good point the other day, because she's like, she does Airbnb dinners in her own home in Atlanta. And she's like, and she says, come eat dinner with a travel writer. And so she brings, and she's like, and she's from India, and she's like, and she has people who are Muslim that come and it doesn't matter what your religion is. She's like, that's not my religion, but doesn't mean that we can't break bread together. And the conversations that you have. And then I mentioned yesterday with her, there was a guy, Len, that I interviewed. He's up in Canada as well. And but on the other side in Toronto, but he created a kitchen where the refugees and the could come and cook, because they didn't have, a place to cook. And it was allowed them that came from the same country. All these grandmothers and these mothers were cooking for other people. And that's how they were sharing their culture and their values with other people, by sharing their food.
Let me give you a food related story that's very personal. Years ago, I lived in Calgary, Alberta, long time ago, like more than 30 years ago. And outside of Calgary, about an hour's drive, is the wonderful town of Banff.
I've never been, but I want to go to. Right? Yeah.
And in Banff, the youth hostel that has a common kitchen. And it's a big industrial kitchen. It's a great kitchen. So whenever bad things would happen to me while I was in Calgary, whenever I was pissed off or in a bad mood or angry about something, I'd jump in my car, I'd drive to Banff, I'd check into the youth hostel, and I'd spend the day baking bread for other people.
Really?
Yeah. And I'd just give away the bread to people. I'd be like, hey, I just made 12 loaves of bread. Want a loaf of bread? And it made me, so one of my values is service to others. So by getting myself more deeply ingrained in that value, it made me forget about and feel better about all the things in my life that weren't aligned with my values.
Right.
So understanding that that's one of my values, and then acting on it in that way around food, made me feel so much better. So I'd stay one night, I'd make, 3 batches of bread, a dozen loaves a piece, and hand them out and make a bunch of new friends. And sometimes we didn't even speak the same language. I had no idea what these people were saying, but they were very happy and they were saying a lot of things to me.
Right.
This is pre-Google Translate. I had no way of knowing what they were saying, but they were smiling. They liked the bread. Right?
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a fantastic story. And it reiterates how food can bring us together.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, what is more of a human experience in these days where we're all technology, like we're sitting here with technology, technology out there and everywhere, breaking bread with someone? We've been doing that since we've been here. Right. Since the beginning. Right. There's nothing more human than sharing our sustenance with each other and saying, listen, I went and caught the mastodon today. And I cooked it over the fire that we just figured out how to make this week. And why don't you have some? There's nothing more human than this. Right. Yeah. So I know sometimes in the events industry, food is like, as you say, it's a checklist. And there's many event planners who are well beyond that, but there's still a whole lot of folks who just go on the checklist. Yeah. It's the most fundamental way for us to bring humanity back into these meetings experiences. What are these meetings and experiences about if not coming together,
right,
realizing our shared humanity, what our values, here, have some sustenance, thought about, and I would like, it's a beautiful way to add that important sense of being back into these events, which sometimes can be a little dehumanizing.
Yeah, very much so, because you're walking through your a cog in a wheel, but you're just the 500 people that you're walking by on the hall here, right? Just a little dot looking at drone up. Yeah.
It's built the thing to be transactional, to do business.
Right.
We're not all here to have a great time and sing kumbaya. But if you can just share some food,
right,
you can still be transactional, but suddenly it becomes about relationship building. It becomes about bonding. It's like, I prepared this for you. I thought about you. I made this thing so that you would feel better.
Right.
It's a beautiful way to honor our shared human values.
And if you understand, if you're asking those questions in advance on your registration form, then also, what are your needs? And the needs being, and I asked the question, how can we help you fully participate? It's mobility, vision, seeing, but it's dietary. And then how can we help you fully participate? Because if I'm sitting at a table with 10 people and I can't eat the food, it's not my experience that's just been messed up. It's everybody able that's experience has been messed up because we didn't think about that value.
Well, and we know the core fundamental benefit of the media industry is we bring people together. In this sort of dissolute world that we live in. We bring people together. And if we bring people together and a bunch of those people end up pissed off, what's the point?
Right. Or they have to leave to go get food somewhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or end up eating a minibar. Or they're just like, walk away. That was nothing but transactional for me. Then the whole benefit of this $1 trillion industry starts to fall apart because we're not helping people feel like they fit in, like they belong, like they're being noticed, they're being seen, that we understand who they are, and we're honoring those aspects of themselves.
Right. Awesome. I like to end on that.
Can I give you a couple of quick thoughts though?
Please, yeah. And I do have one other question, but go for it.
At the end, I want to give a couple of links people can go to for some resources to help them. But I want to end this way. Here's the other reason why we shouldn't be using demographics to understand it. Because the longer we keep doing that, the longer we just resort to demographic stereotypes.
Right.
Your audience coming to an event is 73% female. You're going to start trying to do stuff that you think women like. Right. And it goes back to the stereotyping.
Pink chair or pink bus or
So what are you going to do at your event? You make everything pink because it's all women.
Right.
Like, it's laughable, right?
Right. Yeah.
But then go into the toy store, get the toys and the blue toys. Everybody coming to your event, let's say you understand that they're all white collar males who make $250,000 or more.
Right.
You're just stereotyping things that you think white collar males who earn $250,000 a year care about, right?
Right.
And so those stereotypes are incredibly inaccurate. They're harmful, they're hurtful. We have data to back this up. But the worst thing about those stereotypes is that they're fuel for these fires that are burning around the world of ageism and racism and sexism and homophobia and ableism and classism and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Innocently, by using demographics to try and understand people, we're propping up those social issues, the hate. So all we have to do to change this is to think about people differently.
Right.
Just change the way you look at people.
Right.
As trite as it sounds, change the way you look at people, we can change the world.
I love it.
It's really important.
It is.
And it works better.
Right.
Demographics are only, after talking to 1 million people, we know this statistically, a demographic label, any group of people on average, only about. So if you're planning for Gen Z, you're going to be wrong. No matter what you do, they only resemble each other 10% of the time. Right. So you got to get past the demographic labels and get past those.
Well, and it reminds me of this kid that came to fix our garage door, and he was 21 years old. He'd been in this industry since he was 17 or whatever. He owns his own house. And he's like, I'm not like the rest of the people that are my age. I'm hardworking. I've bought this house on my own, earning my money and it's a trade job, and people look at that differently. But he was so proud, and I was like, I'm so grateful for him because he knew how to fix the coil and fix, and it made me proud of him, because he's going out and doing what he loves to do.
Absolutely.
And owning a home at 21 years of age was important for him.
Absolutely.
And I was just like, way
fantastic.
To go. Yeah.
Fantastic.
It is. All right. So the question that I ask everybody at the end of my shows is, what is safe? Is anybody commented on here? No, we don't have anybody watching us, but we got one comment. Safety, sustainability, and inclusion around food and beverage. From your perspective, coming from the values demographics, what does that mean?
Safety, sustainability,
and inclusion.
Well, it's all of those are about finding a way to align those three things with what people really care about.
Mm-hmm.
Your version of what that means as a planner doesn't really matter.
True.
Because it's not for you.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that those things show up in people's lives are going to be different for everybody.
Right.
So even at the most fundamental level, even just by asking those three telltale questions, let's start to figure out, just in a really big, giant way, you got to understand what the values of these folks are and then do everything for them that way. How do you make it safe in a way? And the third one was inclusion. How to build inclusion and equity and diversity at our events in a way that aligns with their values. Otherwise, you're just doing it for yourself and the CEO and the three people in the committee.
Right. Yeah.
And hoping that you're kind of hitting the target.
Yeah.
And everybody else is going to see things the way you see things.
I mean, because if you think about it too, I mean, you're designing an event. We're at IMEX, 17,000 people. You shouldn't be designing this event to make money. You should be designing this event to help them grow their businesses, make new connections, eat well, or as much as they can, right? I mean, yes, the bottom line is that you do want to make money, but you're going to make money if you think about those things up first.
And again, the whole point of this is bringing people together. And if bringing people together pisses everybody off, they don't want to be together. So
right,
you're just, it's like you're punching yourself in the face.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Bringing people together is the most important thing right now. Do it in a way where everybody wants to be together, not where they're hating the fact that they're here and they're eating, potato chips and Oreo cookies every day. Although Oreo cookies are okay.
Yeah, when are we having those Oreos cookies?
So this is funny. I posted a thing on LinkedIn about how I'm actually an introvert.
Right.
So I get off the stage when I'm speaking. I love being on a stage in front of 1,000 people because I'm alone on the stage.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
That makes sense. That's a good description.
Off the stage, I'm like, oh my god, random people, and I have to make small talk. So I just usually bolt from my hotel room and live in there until the next time somebody's ready to give me a microphone.
Okay.
And so I posted this tongue-in-cheek thing and said I'm an introvert, and if some other introverts want to get together, we could just get together and have some Oreo cookies and not talk. And why don't we do it at 7 a.m. and we can go for a little walk together and not talk and eat Oreos. Right. I threw it up on LinkedIn and we got 100 people coming.
I got to go get my gluten-free ones. I hope Target has them.
We're having Oreo cookies, not talking to each other, and going for a walk at this event with 17,000 people. So we're calling it the Introverts Parade.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's blown up.
It's tomorrow morning at 7, right?
Tomorrow morning at 7. We're meeting in the lobby here at Mandalay Bay.
Okay, I do have to go to Target and get my gluten-free version of them because Oreos are vegan no matter what, but I need to go get my gluten-free ones.
If I had known, I would have done that so that you felt included.
Well, thank you very much. I did tell you on LinkedIn that I was going to go get my gluten-free ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay. There was 100. No, it's 100 posts. Who's got time to read 100 comments? Well, thank you so much. Are you speaking today?
I'm working with the team from Google XI.
Okay.
Today we're going to unveil what's called the Belonging Playbook.
Okay.
Something that's been in the works for the last couple of years. It's a guide for event planners on how to make events where people feel like they belong, partially based on our data from around the world about what belonging means to different people, and the work of a qualitative research firm called Storycraft Lab. And their qualitative research kind of coming together with our quantitative research and creating this asset so that event planners have the ability to understand what belonging looks like at events.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we're unveiling that today.
Okay, cool. What time's that?
I have no idea. I can't remember. I know it's before dinner and after lunch.
Okay. Yeah. All right. It's probably when I'm talking on stage right next to you. Yeah. At 2:30. Okay. Well, I'll check it out because it's belonging is important. And I want everybody. I mean, we all want people to belong. We all want to belong. Absolutely. You know, you don't want to be, I don't know. Anyways, I thought of a commercial with Shaq, but when he was excited, he got picked by the 10-year-old kid on his basketball team. Okay, everybody. Thank David Allison. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you stopping in here to chat with me, and just my random email to you saying, hey, can we do this?
So, always happy to talk with you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. All right, everybody. This is day 3 of IMEX. I'm on the stage this afternoon talking with Trevor Liu about food and beverage and the real cost of that. And then tonight we're talking about the dry beyond the bar, which is about dry or serving non-alcoholic beverages at events. So I'm on a panel for that. But I will be back here tomorrow with Devin from the Event Design Experience to talk about food and beverage in designing your events. So until then, stay safe and eat well. Thanks. And stream.